Hello, my dear friends. Recently, I was looking for an old story on the internet. It's a humorous story, and I was amazed to find that the story is told in different variations about different ethnicities, and different religions, and different cultures. The very same story. So here's the story with some of the different versions that I saw. First is the story of the rabbi who his congregant, one of his congregants is deathly ill and is about to pass away, and the rabbi is desperately rushing to the hospital to be there before the man's last few moments, and the rabbi can't find a parking space, and he's circling the hospital. So finally he turns to the heaven and he says, Ribboni Shalom, if you give me a parking space, I'll donate $5,000 to tzedakah. It's a lot of money. Well, all of a sudden, right in front of the hospital, a parking space opens up. So the man turns to Ribboni Shalom and says, Ribboni Shalom, thanks a lot, but I just found a spot right in front of the hospital. Then there's the story of the secular Jew who had a reservation at a plush restaurant in Manhattan for 8 p.m. and he's driving and he's circling the area where the restaurant is, and there's no parking in Manhattan, and he's getting desperate because he's going to be late and he'll lose his reservation. So he turns to the heavens and he says, God, if you let me find a parking space, I will begin to keep kosher. To no avail, there's no parking space. So then a few minutes later, he still can't find a space, so he's more desperate. He says, God, I'll even keep Shabbos if I find a parking space. Still nothing happens. Then finally, he's still circling and he says, okay, God, if I find a spot, I'll come to shul every single day and every single Shabbos. And lo and behold, right in front of the restaurant, the spot opens up. And then again, he turns to the heaven and he says, never mind, God, I just found a spot. Then there's this Irishman, who, it's an Irish good joke. There was an Irishman who was fixing the roof of his barn, and as he's hammering in the nails, all of a sudden it begins to slip, and it's very precarious. He's afraid he's going to fall off the roof, and perhaps he'll die from the fall. It was rather high up. So he turns to God. He says, God, if you only save me, then I will give up whiskey, and I promise to come to church every single Sunday. So as he's about to fall off the roof, his pants get caught on a nail, and he's miraculously saved. And then he turns to God, and it's the same punchline. He says, God, never mind, I took care of it. And then finally, there's an atheist who was who fell off a cliff, and as he's plummeting down into the ravine below, and he's scared to death. He knows that this will probably be the end of his life. So he turns to God and he says, God, if you save me, I promise I will convert and I will be a good Christian. And just as he says that, there's a branch that's protruding, and he gets caught on the branch, and his life is saved. And again, the same punchline. The fellow says to God, never mind, things are all right now. What first is fascinating is that the same joke appears in different cultures, and that shows that it's a universal theme that everybody could relate to. And that's why, I don't know who came up with the joke first, but it was hijacked. Maybe the Jews thought of it, or the Irish, or the Christians, but different cultures hijacked the same joke because it's a message that appeals to everyone. Now, the interesting thing is that where is the first source for this story? Not as a joke, but where is the first source? The source is in the Chumash, because when Moshe Rabbeinu told Paro that there was going to be a makkah of tzvardeya, of frogs, and then he raised his staff, and the river began swarming with frogs, and wherever the Egyptians went, there were frogs. And the Chumash says there were frogs in the bedrooms, and frogs in the beds, and frogs in the oven, and frogs in the mixing bowls. They were going crazy, the Egyptians. So Paro, he couldn't stand it anymore. So he calls Moshe and he says, please pray to Hashem that he should remove the frogs. I'll do whatever you want. I'll let the Jews go to Mitzrayim and celebrate a holiday for their God. So Moshe prays, and the frogs disappear. And what does the Chumash say? Vayar Paro ki hoisa harvacha. Paro saw that things had eased up. The problem of the frogs disappeared. What did he do? He hardened his heart again, because never mind God, things have been taken care of. And it's all the same idea that when we're in crisis, we turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then when the problem is solved, we assume that it happened accidentally on its own. And it shows how people's memory is so short. And we see that again in this week's Parsha. The Chumash have been in the Jews have been in the desert for 40 years. Their survival is nothing short of miraculous. They had no water, they had no food. God gave them food from the heavens, the man, and in the water there was a bear that came out of a rock, and the bear followed them wherever they traveled in the desert. The bear miraculously followed them. So you would think that people's emunah would be rock solid. Excuse the pun. Well, what happened? Miriam died, and the be'er was in the water was in the merit of Miriam. When she perished, the bear dried up. So what did the people do? The people assaulted Moshe Rabbeinu. They attacked him, and they said, "Why did God bring us to this desert that we should die here of thirst?" What are they thinking? For 40 years, God has provided for them. Didn't they know that if they need more water, so let them ask God again, and He could provide it? But it shows short-term memory. People, it's what did you do for me today? It doesn't matter what 40 years, but what did you do for me today? And that's how people are. So let me tell you my own version of the joke, of this humorous story of never mind God. I took care of it. So a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, COVID-19 hit the world, and the pandemic was horrific. Never experienced anything like that before. And people were dying in swarms, and there were so many people that we knew that passed away. One tragedy after another tragedy, and the world economy was shut down, and people were not able to go to work, and we couldn't leave our houses, and we had to go every place with masks, and we were wondering, how long is this going to last? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Who knows? And Dr. Fauci and all the other prophets were telling us this could go on for 5 years, for 10 years, maybe for the rest of our lives we'll have to walk around with masks. And it was a rather frightening and depressing situation. And I'm sure that all of us, in our minds, I know it's true of myself, I'm sure it's true of you, and I'm sure it's true in the non-Jewish world as well. Everybody turned to God and said, you know what, I'm going to try harder. I'm going to be more sensitive in my relations with other people. I'll become closer to you, Ribbon Shalom. I'll be more meticulous in following your the halacha, or whatever the religious requirements that a person believes in. And in fact, there was a great deal of change that I think took place. People were more sincere and more thoughtful and more careful and more religiously committed. Well, what happened in the last few months? There was a vaccine that was developed miraculously in a period of time that is unheard of. A number of the doctors in our shul told me, you can't have a vaccine that's effective in under 5 years. It doesn't work. And even if they'll find some type of vaccine, it's first to be untested, and it probably will only be 40-50% effective. It's not gonna be a miracle cure all of a sudden. Well, guess what? I think it was already in December that the vaccine became available. And slowly everybody started to get, it became more and more available for everyone to receive the vaccine, and the numbers of the pandemic plummeted, and life returned to normal. And then a few weeks ago, we were able to remove our masks. We didn't have to dive into with masks in shul anymore if we were vaccinated, and the things have gone back to normal. We could go shopping. We don't have to worry. We could interact with people. My office in Manhattan, the OU, after 15 months, the office is open. People are traveling into the city. I go into the city regularly now. Life has returned back to normal. So what are we thinking in our minds? Do we remember, and again, I'm talking even about myself, about it, it's true of all of us. What are we thinking? What about all those commitments that we made, all those promises that we made? We're going to be better, we're going to be more careful with this and that. What thought is going through our mind? It's never mind, God. There's a vaccine that is out on the market. 3 companies, 4 companies, all these vaccines. The pandemic is gone. Never mind. Thanks a lot, but we really don't need your help anymore. And the joke is on us, because it shows that we don't realize and we don't appreciate where the salvation came from, where the Yeshua came from. Do you think that vaccine is just because there's brilliant scientists and a lot of money was poured into it? Of course, there was human effort, but in the end, it was the Ribono Shel Olam gave us the vaccine. But it's the same joke that's true of the Irish, true of the Christians, true of the Rabbi, true of the atheist, true of the Jew. Our thought process is the same, and that's a fault in human condition, is that when the Ribono Shel Olam brings the Yeshua, we say to God, never mind, God, things have worked out. I don't need your help anymore. And that is a tremendous error, and I hope that we will remember. Let's not be like Paro, that we say, Vayar Paro ki hoysar vachi, saw that things were better. Let's recognize, let's appreciate the fact that the Yeshua came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we should be enormously appreciative, and whatever commitments we made in our minds, we should maintain them for years to come.